On a cold, rainy night in Los Angeles, Shaquille O'Neal stopped at a gas station and witnessed a heart-wrenching scene. A pregnant woman, exhausted and working tirelessly in the biting cold. Not only was she enduring the pain of pregnancy, but she was also battling poverty, abandonment, and the overwhelming weight of life's pressures on her frail shoulders. In that moment, Shaquille did something that left everyone speechless. A gesture that not only brought hope, but also transformed a life forever. Where are you watching this from? Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to spread this inspiring story. That night, Los Angeles was enveloped in a light drizzle, the tiny raindrops shimmering under the dim glow of streetlights. The wind whispered through every corner, carrying a biting chill that made the air feel heavier. The red and green neon lights of the gas station reflected off the wet pavement, casting an otherworldly glow. For most, it was just another ordinary night, but at this gas station, the fate of a woman and her family was about to change forever. A sleek black SUV rolled slowly into the station. The deep hum of the engine broke the quiet, drawing curious glances. From the driver's seat emerged Shaquille O'Neal, the basketball legend whose towering height and commanding presence were instantly recognizable. Clad in a long black coat and his signature sneakers, he became the immediate center of attention. Known not only for his international stardom, but also for his humility and generosity, Shaquille was about to do something that surpassed all expectations. Across the station, Emily Carter, a young woman 7 months pregnant, worked silently. She wore a thin, worn-out jacket over her work uniform, which did little to shield her from the freezing cold. Her face bore the unmistakable marks of exhaustion, but her eyes held a glimmer of resilience. Emily moved from car to car, wiping windshields, checking engine oil, and lugging heavy crates from the storage room. She had no choice but to keep going, even though every movement sent sharp pain through her aching back. Emily knew she couldn't afford to stop. A single mother to 8-year-old Sophia, and expecting her second child, every dollar she earned was critical. It paid the rent, covered Sophia's school fees, and kept their fragile life from crumbling entirely. Under the small awning of the gas station, Sophia sat on an old plastic chair, bundled up in an oversized sweater. She held a stubby pencil in her tiny hand, engrossed in sketching on a well-worn notebook. While Emily braved the cold and physical pain, Sophia escaped into the world she created on paper, as if trying to forget the harshness of their reality. Shaquille stood still for a moment, his gaze fixed on Emily as she bent over to wipe a car window. Raindrops glistened in her hair, and the neon lights illuminated the exhaustion etched on her face. Though they were strangers, he could sense the weight of her story, a story of struggle, grit, and unwavering hope. A thought struck Shaquille. He knew he couldn't walk away without doing something, and that night, under the dim lights of the gas station, an act of kindness was about to unfold, one that would change Emily Carter's life forever. Shaquille leaned against his SUV, slowly removing the fuel nozzle from his car, but his gaze remained fixed on the small awning beside the gas station, where little Sophia sat curled up on a faded plastic chair. The drizzle formed a curtain, blurring everything around, leaving only the faint glow of a street lamp illuminating the girl. In Sophia's tiny hands were a well-worn red pencil stub and a tattered notebook, its edges curled from rain and time. She was drawing, not just any ordinary picture, but a portrait of hope, a dream simple yet deeply meaningful. Sophia carefully sketched a cozy little kitchen with steaming pots, chairs surrounding a round table, and a signboard above the counter. The signboard was unfinished, a blank space as if she hadn't yet decided on the name of her dream. Shaquille tilted his head, his eyes filled with curiosity. He couldn't help but notice the meticulousness of her strokes, simple yet profoundly telling. Amidst the cold rain, that picture radiated an inexplicable warmth. He shifted his gaze from Sophia to a woman nearby who he presumed was her mother, Emily. She was standing a short distance away, bent over, cleaning the windshield of an old car. Her smile was faint, a mixture of appeasing a hurried customer and masking her exhaustion. She moved slowly, every step burdened by her 7-month pregnancy. Shaquille saw a stark contrast between the two. A little girl with bright, hopeful eyes, engrossed in a modest dream on paper, and a mother, worn down, waging a silent battle against reality. In that moment, he felt that the two clung to each other not just for survival, but as a lifeline. Somehow, Sophia's dream seemed to be the one thing keeping them from drowning in despair. In the dim light, Shaquille saw more than what met the eye. It wasn't just the story of a single mother struggling to make ends meet. It was the presence of an unseen villain, poverty and neglect. Emily's resilience spoke volumes without words. She didn't complain, but her story was written in her every movement, every laborious bend, every deliberate effort to hide her pain. Her husband, Mark, had abandoned them upon learning of her second pregnancy. He left her with a young child, unpaid debts, and a fractured heart. Shaquille didn't know these details, but the signs were unmistakable. The faint shadows under her eyes, her hardened demeanor, and the way she suppressed any trace of vulnerability when dealing with customers. Sophia, on the other hand, carried the light of childhood, though the shadows of deprivation were creeping in. Her sweater had a hole at the elbow, her pencil box contained only a few stubs, and pages had been torn from her sketchbook, perhaps repurposed for something more urgent. Shaquille understood that deprivation wasn't just about lacking things. It was about dreams being stifled under the weight of daily survival. Holding the nozzle, Shaquille turned back to his car, but his mind lingered on the awning where Emily and Sophia were clinging to one another for strength. He closed the fuel cap, his steps heavy with thoughts as he walked toward the awning. As he approached, he saw Sophia intently coloring the signboard in her sketch. Despite the cold rain, she seemed oblivious to everything around her. Shaquille leaned slightly to get a better view, and at that moment she looked up, her large eyes widening with surprise at the sight of the towering man standing nearby. "What are you drawing?" Shaquille asked, his deep voice warm and gentle. Sophia hesitated, clutching her pencil tightly, then softly replied, "I'm drawing. A place I want to go." "And where is that?" Shaquille crouched, his gaze falling on the sketch where every detail became clearer. Sophia smiled faintly. "It's a place where my mom can cook, like Grandma used to." Shaquille nodded, a spark igniting in his mind. He didn't say anything more, but something in his heart shifted entirely. This wasn't just another cold, rainy night anymore. Shaquille bent down toward Sophia, his large hand gently resting on his knee for balance. Despite his towering figure, which could easily intimidate any child, the warm smile on his face and the kindness in his eyes eased any tension. "You're a great artist," Shaquille said, his deep voice carrying a tone of encouragement. "Is this a kitchen? Are you dreaming of becoming a chef?" Sophia looked up at him, her large round eyes glimmering with a hint of surprise. She nodded but hesitated to respond, as if weighing whether to share her dream. After a moment, she mumbled, "I drew the place my mom wants to work, a restaurant like the one my grandma used to cook in, But Mom says, we can't have a place like that. Shaquille examined the drawing, noting the meticulous details, from the steam rising from pots to the unfinished signboard. Did your grandma cook really well? He asked, trying to keep the conversation going to understand more about Sophia and her simple yet heartfelt dream. Sophia nodded again, her eyes lighting up slightly. She made the best lasagna. Mom knows how to make it too, but she doesn't cook anymore because she's so busy. From a distance, Emily approached, her expression betraying caution as she saw Shaquille talking to her daughter. Though his demeanor was friendly, she couldn't help feeling uneasy, not because of him, but because of her own circumstances. She was used to facing life's struggles on her own, and a stranger showing interest in her and her daughter felt like exposing a vulnerability she couldn't afford. "Sophia, don't bother the gentleman," Emily said, gently pulling her daughter to stand. A forced smile appeared on her face, a mask she always wore to hide her exhaustion and weariness. "Oh, no, it's all right," Shaquille interjected, his voice calm and reassuring. "She's not bothering me at all. She was just telling me about her drawing." He gestured to the artwork in Sophia's hands, his gaze shifting back to Emily, filled with curiosity. Emily hesitated, her worried eyes flickering from Sophia to Shaquille. "She just likes to doodle. It's nothing," she said quickly, as if trying to end the conversation. But Shaquille's gentle yet penetrating look made it hard for her to brush him off so easily. Sensing her discomfort, Shaquille took a slower, softer approach. "It's a chilly evening," he said, steering the topic elsewhere. "Sophia mentioned she likes lasagna. You must be quite the cook." Emily smiled, this time more genuinely but tinged with sadness. "I used to love cooking, a long time ago. Now I just don't have much time for things like that anymore." "Because of work?" Shaquille asked, his tone devoid of judgment, only curiosity. Emily hesitated again but sighed. "Yeah, during the day I clean offices and in the evenings I work here. I just try to make enough to cover rent and take care of Sophia. We don't have much time for anything else." Her response was brief, but her voice carried the weight of someone who had been bearing too much for far too long. Shaquille could see she wasn't just battling financial struggles, she was grappling with an emotional burden too. Despite her petite and weary frame, there was an undeniable strength in her that he couldn't help but admire. As Emily bent down to pick up a cleaning rag, Shaquille noticed the way she moved carefully, clearly trying to alleviate the discomfort from her pregnancy. Her exhaustion was evident, even though she tried hard to mask it. He glanced around the gas station, a cold, bleak place. This was no environment for a pregnant woman, let alone a little girl like Sophia. The injustice of their situation struck Shaquille. There was no obvious villain in their story, yet the unseen forces of poverty, abandonment by her husband, and an unforgiving social system had pushed Emily and Sophia into a corner. These forces, though invisible, weighed down on them heavily, leaving them with few options. "So, where's your husband?" Shaquille asked gently, hoping to understand more of their story. Emily froze, her eyes avoiding his. She clenched the rag in her hand, holding back her emotions. "He left," she replied simply, her words falling like heavy stones to the ground. Sophia stood quietly beside her mother, staring intently at her drawing, as if trying to block out the painful reality of those words. Shaquille crouched down to Sophia's level, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "You've got an amazing mom," he said firmly. As Emily returned to her work, Shaquille stood there, watching her small figure move between the cars and the lot. He turned his gaze to Sophia, still sitting silently under the awning, her dreamy eyes reflecting a sadness too profound for her age. In Shaquille's heart, a plan began to take shape. Tonight, he had seen enough to know he couldn't just walk away. Emily and Sophia needed something more, a spark of hope, a door to a future they had almost stopped believing in. And he decided he was going to do something about it. Shaquille stood quietly near the gas pump, his eyes fixed on Emily as she bent over to clean the windshield of another car. Despite the heavy weight of her pregnancy and the cold rain soaking through her thin jacket, she persevered with her work. He could see her movement slowing, her shoulders trembling slightly each time the wind swept by. "We can't keep living like this," Emily suddenly spoke, breaking the silence. She didn't turn to look at Shaquille, her gaze fixed distantly on the road ahead as if speaking to herself. Shaquille stepped closer, maintaining enough distance to avoid making her feel cornered. "Do you want to talk about it? Sometimes sharing lightens the load," he said, his deep voice warm but without any pressure. Emily let out a small sigh, her hand resting on her back as if to soothe the ache spreading there. "Maybe I do need someone to listen, even if just this once," she said, her voice low and steady, as if afraid that speaking any louder would shatter the fragile calm she was clinging to. "We used to have a family," Emily began, her voice catching slightly. "Mark, my husband, and I used to dream about building a better life. We talked about opening a little restaurant where I could cook the dishes I love, just like my grandmother used to." She paused, gripping the cleaning cloth so tightly that her knuckles turned white. But when Sophia was born, everything changed. Dreams were pushed aside and we had to face reality. Bills, rent, and responsibilities piling up. Mark couldn't handle the pressure. When I got pregnant again, he left. He said he couldn't afford to feed another mouth. And just like that, he was gone. Shaquille remained silent, absorbing each of Emily's words like daggers piercing the air between them. Mark's abandonment wasn't just a simple act of leaving, it was a sentence passed on Emily and her children, forcing her to shoulder burdens no one should bear alone. "And then what?" Shaquille asked gently, his eyes never leaving her. Emily let out a hollow laugh. "I didn't have time to cry or wallow. I started doing any job I could find. By day, I cleaned offices. By night, I worked here. As long as I could keep up with rent and keep Sophia in school, I was willing to do anything." She stopped, her eyes heavy with exhaustion, but glinting with an unyielding resilience. "I can't give Sophia a luxurious life or fancy toys, but I can give her safety and a roof over her head. That's all I can offer." Shaquille could feel the weight of the pain Emily was trying to suppress. Her strength wasn't born of choice, but necessity. The scars Mark left behind didn't just cut into Emily, they marked Sophia too, a child whose simple dreams were stifled by harsh realities. "But sometimes I wonder," Emily continued, her voice dropping to a whisper as if afraid of her own thoughts. "Am I doing enough? Is everything I'm doing actually giving Sophia the life she deserves? Or will she grow up, look back, and see a mother who fought all her life but never really lived?" Shaquille frowned slightly. He understood that Emily wasn't just struggling with poverty and responsibilities, but also with guilt and self-doubt. Shaquille, with his own life's experiences, knew that sometimes people didn't need advice or pity. They just needed someone to listen and recognize their efforts. He didn't interrupt, didn't push Emily to say more. Finally, Emily turned to him, her eyes reflecting a hint of vulnerability. "I'm sorry. I might have said too much. I don't even know why I told all this to a stranger." "Don't apologize," Shaquille replied, his voice firm but comforting. "You have nothing to be sorry for. I see a strong and incredible mother in you, and I believe Sophia sees that too." Emily smiled faintly, though the sadness lingered in her expression. She returned to her work, but in Shaquille's heart, what he had heard completely changed the way he viewed the situation. He knew he couldn't rewrite Emily's past. He couldn't erase the pain she had endured. But one thing was certain. He could do something to change her and Sophia's future. In Shaquille's heart, a decision had solidified. A decision born not just out of compassion, but out of deep respect for Emily and the extraordinary strength she carried. The next morning, the gas station operated as usual, but the atmosphere felt heavier, burdened by the remnants of the previous night's rain. Emily was restocking shelves in the small store inside the station, her shoulders bearing the familiar weight of exhaustion. Meanwhile, Sophia, as always, sat quietly under the old awning, continuing her unfinished sketches. The rumble of an engine broke the somber silence. Emily looked up and recognized the sleek black SUV pulling into the station. She frowned slightly, wondering why the tall man from the previous night had returned. Shaquille stepped out of the car, carrying 2 large paper bags. He walked over to the awning where Sophia was seated and crouched down to her eye level. "Hi there," he said warmly, his deep voice kind and friendly. "I thought you might need a few things to finish your drawing." He gently placed one of the bags on the small table next to Sophia. When she opened it, her eyes lit up with joy. Inside was a set of high-quality colored pencils, brimming with every shade imaginable, along with several brand-new sketchbooks filled with soft, pristine pages. "I've never seen so many colors before," Sophia exclaimed, her hands trembling as she picked up the box of pencils. Hugging it tightly to her chest, she beamed up at him. "Thank you." Shaquille chuckled, his gaze filled with warmth as he watched her. "You deserve them. And I want to see your best drawings, okay?" Sophia nodded eagerly, her small face glowing with happiness. Just then, Emily stepped outside and paused, taking in the scene. Her gaze wavered between her daughter's joy and the unease of accepting gifts from a stranger. "What's going on?" she asked, her tone trying to remain calm. Shaquille straightened up and turned to Emily with a gentle smile. "I thought Sophia could use these to keep drawing, and I brought some groceries for the 2 of you." He lifted the second bag, revealing basic staples like bread, milk, fruit, and a few snacks. Emily glanced at the bag and the art supplies, her hands instinctively clenching. "I can't accept this," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "We don't need charity." "This isn't charity," Shaquille replied firmly but respectfully. "It's just a little help to make things easier. Everyone needs a hand sometimes." Emily stood silent, her eyes flickering between the familiar instinct to refuse and the yearning for even a small reprieve. Shaquille placed the grocery bag on the table and pulled out a flyer, handing it to Emily. "I found this. It's a free cooking class for single mothers. They teach everything from basic skills to running a professional kitchen. I thought you might be interested." Emily took the flyer and scanned the bold text. "Cooking classes for single moms. A life-changing opportunity." The words lingered in her mind, stirring memories of an old dream she had long buried. I don't know," she stammered, uncertainty lacing her voice. "I don't have the time, and I'm not sure if I can do it." Shaquille stepped closer, his eyes meeting hers with unwavering belief. "Emily, I've seen your strength. You've done everything for Sophia, and I know you can do even more. This isn't charity. It's a chance to start over, to live for yourself, not just out of responsibility." Emily looked down at the flyer in her hands, her expression softening. She didn't say anything, but her silence no longer felt like rejection. It was an internal struggle. As Shaquille drove away, Emily stood still, gripping the flyer tightly. His words and Sophia's radiant joy with the colored pencils lingered in her mind. That night, after Sophia fell asleep with the box of pencils beside her, Emily sat in the corner of their small room, staring at the flyer again. A flicker of hope, faint but persistent, began to stir within her. Through one small but meaningful gesture, Shaquille had planted the first seed of change in Emily and Sophia's lives. That evening, after Sophia fell asleep with her new set of crayons, Emily sat quietly at the small table in their cramped room. A flyer for a cooking class lay on the table, the dim yellow light illuminating the words. The phrase, "a chance to change your life," seemed like a gentle yet powerful invitation. She couldn't stop asking herself, did she have enough time, enough energy to start over? And what if she failed? But then, the image of Sophia's bright eyes holding the box of crayons came to her mind. It was the first time in months she had seen her daughter so happy. The next morning, caught between anxiety and determination, Emily picked up the phone and called the number on the flyer. On the first day of the class, Emily stepped into a large kitchen equipped with modern appliances and filled with the light aroma of fresh ingredients. She felt awkward, her hands unconsciously touching the apron she had tied carefully around her waist. The instructor, an experienced chef, introduced the course. Listening to his encouraging words, Emily felt a flicker of confidence starting to grow. During the first few lessons, Emily focused on basic techniques, chopping vegetables, making sauces, and plating dishes. Although everything initially seemed unfamiliar, every time she held a knife or stirred a pot, memories of her childhood resurfaced. Her grandmother cooking family meals by the stove. The scent of herbs, the sizzle of oil, and her grandmother's stories came rushing back, like waves of nostalgia. "You have the hands of a cook who cares," the instructor remarked after a practical session. The compliment caught Emily off guard, but it also sparked a glimmer of hope within her. Though the class brought her joy, the harsh realities of life didn't let Emily go easily. After each session, she rushed home to prepare dinner for Sophia before heading to her night shift at the gas station. Her body ached, her feet throbbed, but she held on to a fragile thread of hope. Not everyone around her was supportive. Her co-workers at the gas station sometimes mocked her. "Someone like you dreaming of being a chef? Get real." Those words cut deep into Emily's pride, but Sophia's eager eyes each night, asking about the new dishes her mom learned, became the driving force that kept her moving forward. As Emily worked hard to learn and persevere, Shaquille wasn't idle either. He quietly began laying out his own plan. Shaquille used his business connections to find people willing to help. A friend who owned a small chain of restaurants agreed to lend him an unused kitchen space. A food supplier promised to provide ingredients at discounted rates. He also kept a watchful eye on Emily's journey from afar. Whenever she faced challenges or moments of doubt, he would show up, offering timely words of encouragement. "Everyone needs someone to believe in them when they can't believe in themselves," he had once told her during a brief conversation. As time went on, Emily not only learned how to cook, but also how to believe in herself. Every dish she created carried memories, love, and hope. It wasn't just about following recipes, it was about telling her story of resilience. One day, after completing a special lasagna in class, Emily broke down in tears. Not from exhaustion, but because she realized she had done it. That lasagna represented her dream, a dream long buried under years of hardship, now brought back to life. When Shaquille heard about it, he smiled. He knew the time had come to take the next step in his plan. That day was a rare clear morning after many days of relentless rain. Emily had just finished her night shift at the gas station, stepping out with a tired body but a heart full of hope. She had just completed the final session of her cooking class and felt that, though the road ahead was still unclear, she was inching closer to a future she had once dared not dream of. As she and Sophia prepared to head back to their small rented room, Shaquille appeared, as usual, in his familiar SUV. He gave them a warm smile and motioned for them to get in. "Where are we going?" Emily asked, her voice laced with both suspicion and curiosity. "Trust me. Today is a special day," Shaquille said, his tone mysterious yet oddly reassuring. The SUV glided through the busy streets of Los Angeles before stopping in front of a small shop modestly tucked into a corner. A brand new sign hung on the glass window with the words "Carter's Kitchen" elegantly engraved, standing out under the soft morning light. Emily froze, her eyes wide with disbelief. "What is this?" she stammered, her steps slowing as though afraid everything before her was just a dream. Shaquille stepped forward, pulling a key from his pocket and placing it in her hand. "This is yours," he said, his voice gentle yet resolute. Emily stared down at the key in her hand, then back at the storefront. What are you saying?" "No way. I can't accept this." "Emily, I didn't do this out of charity. I did this because I believe in you. I believe in your talent, your passion, and what you can bring to this community," Shaquille explained. "Carter's Kitchen isn't just a restaurant. It's an opportunity for you to chase the dream you thought was lost." Sophia, standing next to her mother, jumped up and down, shouting, "Mom, your restaurant! We have a restaurant!" Emily collapsed to her knees, her legs no longer able to support her as emotions overwhelmed her. Tears streamed down her face, each drop washing away years of hardship and pain she had endured alone. "This isn't a dream, is it, Sophia?" Emily turned to her daughter, pulling her into a tight embrace. "No, Mom, it's real. This is your restaurant." Sophia beamed, her eyes sparkling with excitement. Shaquille stood quietly for a moment, allowing them to savor the moment. When Emily looked up, her eyes red from crying, she shook her head, her voice still choked with emotion. "You have no idea what this means to me and Sophia. Thank you. Thank you." Despite the surge of emotion, a quiet worry lingered in Emily's heart. "I've never managed a restaurant before. I don't even know where to start. This is too big for me," she confessed, her hand still gripping the key tightly. Shaquille nodded, his gaze kind but steadfast. "I know that, but you don't have to do this alone. I've arranged for a team to help you get started from the ground up. And don't forget, this community will support you. You're not just cooking, you're creating a place where people will feel at home." Emily bit her lip, her anxieties colliding with the spark of hope that had just been ignited. She understood that even with this opportunity, The journey ahead would be fraught with challenges. Poverty, skepticism from those around her, and the fear of failure remained the villains she had to face. But this time, she wasn't alone. Shaquille had given her more than a restaurant. He had given her the belief that she could overcome it all. Shaquille opened the restaurant door and led the mother and daughter inside. The space was small but cozy, equipped with a modern kitchen and neatly arranged wooden tables. A whiteboard hung on the wall with the words, "Write your own story." Sophia ran around, cheering, "Mom's going to make the best food ever. Your lasagna will be the best in the world." Emily stood in the middle of the room, her eyes scanning every corner. She placed her hand on a table, feeling the rustic yet full of potential charm of the place. In that moment, she realized this wasn't just a restaurant. It was a space for her to rewrite her life, a place where all the pain and struggles would transform into motivation to bring joy and warmth to those around her. Shaquille stepped closer, placing a hand on her shoulder. "Now, let's get started. I believe in you." Emily lifted her head, her eyes shining with determination. For the first time in many years, she felt not just alive, but truly living. As the morning sunlight streamed through the glass windows of Carter's kitchen, Emily stood in the middle of the small kitchen, holding a long to-do list. She took a deep breath, savoring the aroma of freshly baked bread. This wasn't just a dream anymore, it was reality. But reality had never been easy. The first days of managing the restaurant were full of challenges. Emily had to handle everything from the menu, sourcing ingredients, and managing staff, to learning how to balance the finances, a completely new territory for her. Despite guidance from Shaquille and his supportive team, she couldn't shake the pressure of dealing with countless tiny details critical to keeping the restaurant running smoothly. The grand opening wasn't as busy as she had hoped. Only a handful of people stopped by, most of them curious neighbors. Emily quickly realized that not everyone was eager to support a new restaurant in an area already saturated with dining options. Each time a customer walked in, Emily greeted them with a smile, hiding her nervousness. But when they left without returning, she couldn't help but worry. Were her dishes good enough? Would people recognize the heart and soul she poured into every plate? On some evenings, Emily sat alone in the empty restaurant, the soft lights reflecting off her tear-filled eyes. Her daughter Sophia would often come to comfort her. "Mom, tomorrow will be busier. Your lasagna is the best," she'd say with a bright, reassuring smile. Even Sophia's words, as sweet as they were, couldn't completely ease Emily's worries. Rent, ingredient costs, and the expenses of raising 2 kids loomed over her like a mountain, threatening to collapse at any moment. Shaquille didn't leave Emily to face these struggles alone. He frequently stopped by the restaurant, not to check on her, but to encourage her. Every time he walked in, he brought words of support and practical advice. "The first days are always the hardest," Shaquille said one evening as he watched Emily meticulously reviewing the financial ledger. "But you've overcome tougher challenges than this. Don't forget why you started." He also leveraged his influence to promote the restaurant. A single social media post from him, featuring Emily's lasagna, garnered hundreds of shares. Words like "a story of resilience" and "food made with heart" spread quickly. Gradually, Emily and Carter's kitchen began to make a name for themselves in the neighborhood. Neighbors, touched by her journey, started stopping by to support her. An elderly woman who lived nearby became a regular, always ordering soup and toasted bread. "Your soup reminds me of my youth she said with a warm smile. A group of construction workers from a nearby site started visiting during lunch breaks, ordering simple yet flavorful dishes. They didn't just eat, they spread the word about the restaurant. One day, Emily looked out the window and saw a young couple with a small child. They stood outside for a moment, reading the sign, before walking in with smiles. "We heard about this place from Shaquille's post," the wife said. "We wanted to try the lasagna everyone's been raving about." Emily smiled, feeling a weight lift from her shoulders. In the days that followed, Emily continued to pour her heart into every dish. She made lasagna using her grandmother's family recipe, adding a modern twist to suit contemporary tastes. Each dish became a story she told through its flavors. Every evening, after closing the restaurant, Emily sat with Sophia to admire the little drawings her daughter made at a small corner table in the restaurant. With childlike pride, Sophia often told customers, "My mom is the best chef in the world." Despite the ongoing challenges, Emily realized she had come further than she ever dreamed. She wasn't just cooking. She was creating a place where people felt connected. A small but cozy space where every dish carried a story of resilience, determination, and hope for the future. From his usual corner table, Shaquille watched quietly. He knew he had been right to believe in Emily. That morning, sunlight streamed through the large glass windows of Carter's kitchen, reflecting off the shiny, brand-new sign outside. Inside, Emily stood in the kitchen, her hands busy but her heart full of nervous anticipation. This wasn't just an opening day. It was the day she introduced her dream to the community, a dream long buried under the weight of life's struggles. The small kitchen was filled with the comforting aroma of cheese, tomato sauce, and toasted bread, scents that evoked warmth and familiarity. Emily, wearing a pristine white apron emblazoned with the Carter's Kitchen logo, silently reassured herself, "Today will be special." Outside, a small group of customers had begun to gather, mostly familiar neighbors and a few curious faces drawn in by Shaquille's social media post. A handful of cars parked along the street, and cheerful voices could be heard from within. Sophia, dressed in an adorable uniform with the words "Mom's Little Helper" printed on the chest, darted back and forth. She clutched a stack of hand-drawn menus, each page decorated with her own charming illustrations. "Come try my mom's lasagna. It's the best in the world," Sophia eagerly told each customer, her eyes sparkling with pride. Her innocent smile and boundless enthusiasm quickly won over the onlookers. "What a sweetheart!" one customer exclaimed, holding the menu she'd handed out. In the kitchen, Emily was meticulously preparing trays of lasagna, the dish she'd chosen as the centerpiece for the grand opening. To her, it was more than a meal. It was a piece of her history. "My grandmother taught me how to make this when I was little," she shared with one of her kitchen assistants, her voice tinged with emotion. "Every time I cook it, I feel like she's here with me, helping me through everything." Layer by layer, Emily carefully assembled the pasta, cheese, and sauce with the kind of attention that told a story through her food. When the first plates of lasagna were brought out, Emily stepped out of the kitchen to greet her guests. For a moment, the first diners were silent as they took their first bites. The quiet unsettled Emily. But then an elderly woman exclaimed, "I've never had lasagna this good. It's truly special." The compliment felt like a flame igniting in Emily's chest. She smiled, her eyes welling with tears. From his usual corner, Shaquille observed the scene, nodding as if to say, "I knew you could do it." Meanwhile, Sophia continued buzzing around, helping customers with their orders and occasionally sharing her mom's journey with pride. "My mom worked really hard to make today happen," she told a family waiting for their food. "This lasagna is her secret recipe." A young boy from the family looked up at Sophia and asked, "What's your job here?" Sophia beamed. "I'm my mom's assistant. I help run the restaurant." Her answer brought a wave of delighted laughter from the group. They didn't just see a happy child, they felt the joy of a family rebuilding their lives one step at a time. Not everything went smoothly, though. Some customers walked in with skeptical looks, as if unsure about trying a small, newly opened restaurant on the corner. A few even left without ordering. Those moments weighed heavily on Emily's heart. She wondered if she had what it took to keep the momentum going, or if the financial strain and fierce competition would crush her dream. Sensing her worry, Shaquille approached her and softly said, "Not everyone will support you from the start. What matters is that you don't give up. Let your food do the talking." By the end of the day, as the last customers left with satisfied smiles, Emily stood behind the counter, taking it all in. The restaurant wasn't packed, but it had made its first mark. Sophia sat in a corner, sketching more pictures of the restaurant, while Shaquille quietly cleared a few tables. Emily let out a deep breath, feeling both exhausted and hopeful. Today marked the beginning of a new chapter, a chapter where she wasn't just surviving but living, chasing her dream, and building a place she could finally call home. After its grand opening, Carter's kitchen gradually settled into a steady rhythm. Emily grew accustomed to the bustling pace of running a small restaurant. She began creating new dishes, attracting customers from near and far to experience the unique flavors she brought to life. Each day, Emily walked into the kitchen with growing confidence. She was more than just a chef. She was the soul of the restaurant, telling her story through every dish she prepared. Sophia remained the adorable little employee, darting around to hand out menus and chat with customers, spreading joy wherever she went. In his usual corner, Shaquille often sat alone, quietly observing everything. But as time went on, his appearances became less frequent, as he silently stepped back, allowing Emily to carve out her own place. One afternoon, when the restaurant was quieter than usual, Shaquille walked in, his eyes filled with determination but tinged with a hint of nostalgia. Emily, standing behind the counter, immediately noticed the difference in his gaze. "Here to check up on me again?" she teased, her eyes sparkling with humor. Shaquille shook his head, a warm smile spreading across his face. "No, not today. I'm here to say goodbye." Emily froze, her hand suspended midair as she was arranging napkins. "Goodbye? What do you mean?" "Emily," Shaquille said, his voice steady yet gentle, "I think it's time for you to stand on your own. I don't need to be here every day anymore. You've done it, and I know you'll keep doing even better." Emily was silent for a long moment, trying to process his words. Even though the restaurant had found its footing, the thought of Shaquille no longer being there to support her left her feeling both empty and uncertain. "But what if I fail? What if I can't keep everything together?" she asked, her voice low and filled with worry. Shaquille shook his head, his eyes radiating reassurance. "You can't fail as long as you keep trying. Look at how far you've come. You've overcome so much to get here, and now you're stronger than ever." He stood and placed a gentle but meaningful hand on her shoulder. "Emily, kindness is a circle," he said. Someone helped me when I needed it, and I've done the same for you. Now, you have the chance to start new circles for others. Spread that kindness, and you'll see how beautiful the world can be." Tears welled up in Emily's eyes, but this time they weren't tears of fear. They were tears of profound gratitude. "I'll never forget what you've done for me and Sophia. You didn't just change my life, you gave me a chance to dream again." Shaquille smiled. "Keep moving forward, Emily. Don't stop dreaming. You've got this, and I'm proud of you." Shaquille left the restaurant, and Emily stood by the window, watching his figure fade into the bustling street. Within her, a powerful flame was ignited, a flame of determination, gratitude, and hope for a brighter future. That evening, after closing the restaurant, Emily sat with Sophia, looking at her daughter's latest drawing. In the picture was Carter's kitchen, glowing with lights and filled with happy customers. "Do you think I can do it, Sophia?" Emily asked, her voice tinged with seriousness. "You can do it, Mommy," Sophia replied instantly, without hesitation, "because you're my mom." Emily smiled, her eyes shining with resolve. Though Shaquille's presence would no longer be a constant, Emily knew he had given her something far greater than his guidance, a steadfast belief in herself. After Shaquille left, Emily stood by the window, her eyes following his figure until it disappeared from view. Yet, within her, a new surge of energy arose. It wasn't just pride, but a clear realization that Carter's kitchen was no longer just her dream. It had become a part of the community, a place where she could make a difference. In the days that followed, Emily spent more time reflecting on how she could turn the restaurant into a symbol of kindness and sharing, far beyond its role as an ordinary eatery. Gradually, Carter's kitchen became known not only for the unique flavors of its dishes, but also for Emily's story. That story spread, inspiring many in the neighborhood. One evening, while Emily was at the stove, she heard the doorbell chime. A middle-aged woman entered, her eyes filled with worry. "I heard there are free meals here for struggling families," she said hesitantly. Emily nodded and offered a gentle smile. "Yes, that's right. Please have a seat. Today, we have chicken soup and fresh bread." This marked the beginning of a new initiative at Carter's Kitchen. Every Saturday evening, Emily hosted free meals for families in need. With support from suppliers Shaquille had once connected her with, she provided not only delicious meals, but also a warm space where everyone felt welcomed and valued. These meals became a cherished event in the neighborhood. Struggling families, lonely seniors, and underprivileged children found more than food at Carter's Kitchen. They found humanity. Sophia, playing the role of her mother's little helper, had her own way of spreading kindness. She would often sit in a corner of the restaurant, crayons in hand, diligently drawing pictures with messages of hope. One day, Sophia ran to the table of an elderly man and placed a drawing in front of him. It depicted a small house with warm lights glowing inside, a table laden with steaming dishes at the center. "Sir, this picture is for you," Sophia said, her eyes shining brightly. "So, you'll always know there's a place for you to come back to." The man, his eyes red with emotion, smiled softly and placed his hand on Sophia's head. "Thank you, sweetheart. You've just given me a reason to keep going." From then on, Sophia's drawings became an integral part of Carter's Kitchen. She would often create small illustrations to give to special guests, each one carrying a message of love and hope. Though things were steadily improving, Emily still faced underlying challenges. rent, and ingredient costs remained significant pressures. On slow days, she sometimes wondered if she could keep the restaurant running long term. But whenever she felt weary, Emily would look at the joyful faces of her patrons, especially the families who found solace and support there. She realized that, no matter the difficulties, the values she was building were far more important than any obstacle. One evening, during a free meal service, a young mother approached Emily. Her eyes glistened with gratitude as she said, "You have no idea how much this means to us. I once thought I wouldn't be able to provide for my child. But because of these meals, I've had the time to find a better job." Looking at the young mother, Emily saw a reflection of herself, a woman once on the brink, struggling to find a way forward. She smiled and clasped the woman's hand firmly. "If you ever need more help, please let me know. Everyone deserves a chance to start over." Shaquille had once said, "Kindness is a circle." And now Emily felt the truth of that deeply. What she had received from Shaquille had been passed on to others, and she believed they too would continue spreading it even further. Carter's Kitchen was no longer just a restaurant. It had become a symbol of hope, compassion, and the transformative power of small acts of kindness. Mornings at Carter's Kitchen always began with the sound of sizzling pans in the kitchen, the laughter of regular patrons, and the bright, eager eyes of young Sophia as she helped her. Mother arranged the tables. Emily stood in the familiar kitchen, gazing through the glass window at the bustling street outside. She suddenly realized that the dream she once thought lost had truly become a reality. But what brought her the greatest joy wasn't merely fulfilling her own dream. It was discovering the deeper meaning behind Carter's Kitchen. It wasn't just a restaurant. It was a place where people connected, a haven of hope for those who had once lost faith in life, just like she had. One evening, when the restaurant had quieted down, Emily sat beside Sophia. The little girl was busy drawing a new picture, this time of her mother standing by the stove, surrounded by smiling diners enjoying their meals. "Mom, did I get it right? This is your dream, isn't it?" Sophia asked, her eyes brimming with curiosity and pride. Emily looked at the drawing, tears welling up in her eyes. "Yes, sweetheart, this is my dream. But it's not just mine anymore. It's yours too, and it belongs to everyone in this neighborhood, and even those I've never met." She understood that her dream was not just about pursuing her personal passion, but also about making a difference in the lives of others. Emily often recalled Shaquille's words, "Kindness is a circle." That simple phrase had guided her journey and became a lesson she taught Sophia every day. One day, a middle-aged man walked into the restaurant. He placed a small envelope on the counter and said, "Thank you for helping me find hope again," his voice trembling with emotion. Emily opened the envelope to find a heartfelt thank you letter and a small sum of money. The man explained that the free meal he had received at Carter's Kitchen had given him the strength and motivation to find a job, and now he wanted to give back and help others. Moments like these reminded Emily that every small act of kindness, every meal, and every word of encouragement she gave could be the starting point of a new circle. However, not every day was easy. Emily still faced challenges. Competition from larger restaurants, financial pressures, and slow days sometimes made her question whether she could keep going. But whenever she felt weary, Emily saw the smiles of her customers, the enthusiasm in Sophia's eyes, and remembered Shaquille, the man who believed in her when she couldn't even believe in herself. Nothing worthwhile comes easy. she reminded herself, continuing her work with the belief that every struggle was part of the journey. Sophia, with her innocence and creativity, carried on the circle of kindness in her own way. She continued drawing pictures for special guests, each one carrying a message of love and hope. One afternoon, Sophia brought a drawing to a woman sitting quietly in the corner of the restaurant. It was an image of a large tree, its branches stretching wide, offering shade to many people beneath it. "Ma'am, my mom says everyone can be like this tree. You can too," Sophia said, her voice soft but filled with conviction. The woman looked at the picture, tears streaming down her face. She said nothing, simply nodding and pulling Sophia into a heartfelt hug. The story of Emily and Carter's kitchen wasn't one of dazzling success, but of perseverance, faith, and the power of kindness. Shaquille had started the circle, and now Emily and Sophia were expanding it, one small act at a time. As Shaquille had said, kindness is a circle. And that circle never truly closed, because everyone touched by kindness had the power to pass it on, creating an endless ripple of positive change. Their story serves as a reminder that it's never too late to chase your dreams, and that sometimes all we need is someone to believe in us, so we can believe in ourselves and help others do the same. As night fell over the city, the lights from Carter's kitchen continued to glow, a small beacon of hope in the heart of the community. Inside, Emily, Sophia, and their guests were writing new stories of kindness, hope, and humanity. The tale of Emily, Sophia, and Carter's kitchen is a testament to the power of kindness and perseverance. From a struggling single mother, Emily transformed a dream she once thought impossible into a reality that not only changed her life, but inspired an entire community. The extraordinary thing is that one simple act of kindness from Shaquille sparked a never-ending circle of goodness. And now, the question is, if given the chance, what will you do to help someone and start your own circle of kindness? If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel so you won't miss more inspiring stories. Let's spread the message of hope, kindness, and compassion together.